are made in the image of God. This is the teaching not only of our philosophy and the philosophy of New Thought traditions, it is also the teaching and the basic underlying tenet of all faith practices. We filter through the dogma and the human stuff that tends to be piled on top of things. We get to the bottom line. We're all teaching and knowing and expressing, reminding ourselves that we are made in the image of God. This month, our theme is reaching higher. I want to say rising higher. I think reaching and rising for me are almost synonymous with each other, but we're just exploring this theme of reaching higher. This weekend, we remembered the 20th anniversary of the events of 9/11. And those will be etched in our memories for years to come. And as I was reflecting on this, the question came to me, where was I when this event occurred? And I ask you to just pause for a few moments and reflect on, where were you when the activities of 9/11 began? I remember that I was working in Walnut Creek. I had previously worked in San Francisco, and the company decided to scale back its presence in San Francisco and have a satellite office in Walnut Creek, but still maintain a home office presence in San Francisco in the financial district. And I just remember everything being on high alert. I was able to get into my office in Walnut Creek using public transportation. But everything in San Francisco was closed down because of the potential threat to San Francisco being a major coastal operation, or that was what was being presented. So there was all of the media hype and all of the fear-mongering that was going on, and rightfully so. It was a time for us to be on high alert. But I ask this question, as we reflect now back on those 20 years, what have we learned from our hindsight? What have we learned from the investigations and various commissions that have studied the events of 9/11? What have we learned from the conspiracy theories that still abound regarding 9/11? Those that say this was an internal directed operation for the financial gain of some individuals. Where are we with that? What out of this experience has transformed us? And what out of this experience invites us to reach higher in consciousness, to reach higher in our love and in our faith in one another? In what ways have we transcended and practiced inclusion of others? And for those of you who had joined us last week, remember I offered this idea of othering people, those people that are different from us in physical ways, in philosophical ways, in ideological ways, in spiritual ways. You have a tendency to other people who are not in alignment with our particular point of view. And by doing so, we cut off ourselves from a large segment of our brothers and sisters. And in doing so, we forget, as our song encouraged us today, to remember that we are created in the image of God. In our visioning circle yesterday, and I'm going to put in a selfless plug, inviting you to join us for our visioning on Saturday mornings at 10:30, and you can find the Zoom link on our website. But out of our visioning yesterday, the theme of love emerged. The love for each other within this spiritual community. The love that we have for our physical space, for the beauty that is created here, and for each one that offers their individual as well as collective contributions to maintaining the beauty that we experience here in this space. And we know that the building is just one aspect of community. Community is basically how we show up with each other and how we show up for our brothers and sisters. And so, as we include and benefit from the wisdom and experience of each one that we gain along the way, we rise. We rise. And so today we're looking at this idea of transcendence, to transcend and include. Spiritual transcendence calls us to transcend or to rise above our old paradigms and our old ways of being. We focus our attention on including only those elements that are life-supporting and that serve our direct evolution of consciousness. We can think of this as the evolutionary spiral that Dr. Holmes talks about, that transcends and expansively includes everyone, knowing that the best for each one is the highest possibility, and that is what we are all striving for the highest and best. In the philosophy and the teachings of Science of Mind and New Thought, we believe that life's dramas take place on three planes: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Transcendence invites us to rise above the physical levels of experience and existence, to rise beyond the conditions and the world of effects, to move into that realm of spirit, to rise in consciousness into the realm of spirit. And Dr. Holmes says this in our Science of Mind textbook: spiritual existence is a fact, and spirituality may be defined as an atmosphere of good, the realization of God. And so this is what we're striving for, is to live in this atmosphere of good, to live in this atmosphere of the realization of God in me, God in you, God in all. It reminds me of the song that we use sometimes by Eddie Watkins. It says, "I am the place where God shows up. In God, in this essence, I live, move, and have my being. I am the place where God shows up." And then this is from an article in the Science of Mind magazine in August of 1962. And I don't know if this is a quote from Dr. Holmes or a quote from a contributor to the magazine for that particular month. But I'll share it with you because it illustrates another aspect of rising above and reaching higher. This rising above creates an atmosphere of goodness, truth, beauty, harmony, and reality. Such an atmosphere comes in such a degree as one comes to believe, to understand, and make use of the invisible presence. And I add, this presence that is always with us. It is never an absence, it is always a presence. To be spiritually minded is to be whole-minded. To be whole-minded is to be holy. It means we realize the complete unity of God and its creation. The complete unity of God and its creation. It means that we understand the complete unity and close relationship of all life, an individual responsive alike to everyone. The Course in Miracles puts it this way: awareness or transcendence begins something of another dimension, brings something of another dimension to the three-dimensional human being. In this awareness, there is wholeness. In this awareness, there is totality. And so you can see a theme that is evolving here around this whole idea of transcendence and this whole idea of rising up, is that we are remembering that we're each one a part of the whole. We're each a part of the totality of life. And so I offer some illustrations to just expand on that a little bit more. And the first one is that we are evolving in consciousness. And evolving consciousness provides a particular understanding of our place in the world. The soul, the transcendent self, is that aspect of the psyche that feels as if it is personal. It cannot be divorced from the totality of the larger consciousness of which it is a part. We cannot be separated from the whole. And of course, in this process, in this awareness of our wholeness, of our totality with the one, also calls forth forgiveness, which is the second illustration. And I turn to the evolutionary vision statement of our Centers for Spiritual Living, which reads, "We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm." Forgiveness, whether from errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. And so this brings us back to our memory of the events of 9/11. Out of those events, have we learned, or have we practiced, or have we even considered practicing forgiveness from the errors or the injustices of the debts that were involved in this process? If we can move into that place of being willing, just being willing, that is all that is required, to be willing to be willing. Transcending our differences enables us to live in integrity with this vision. Our differences amplify our unique gifts. You know, that's one of the main tenets of the work that is done in the area of spiritual activism. The name has just escaped me right now. It'll come back. Diversity and inclusion. In our work in the arena of diversity and inclusion, in our social activism, in our desire for this interconnectedness, we are called to shift from the old idea of diversity, meaning that someone who looks different from me, someone who may have a different philosophical or ideological perspective, in order for them to be included, it is required that they adjust to whatever my particular norm is. That is not diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion is recognizing that it is our unique gifts that are identified as our differences that we bring to the table that allow us to expand and be whole. Forgiveness means reconciliation in spite of estrangement. It means reunion despite hostility. It means acceptance of those who have been unacceptable. It means reception of those who have been rejected. All of this summed up says that we each are here to be the presence of spirit for one another. So when someone who is living on the street, for whatever the reason is, it is not ours to judge why this individual is living on the street. Whether it is their choice or whether it is circumstances, that is not ours to judge. When an individual walks into our space, our responsibility is to see the essence of God, to see the essence of spirit in that individual. This is what it means to receive those who have been rejected. And I just invite you to pause and to think for a moment in your own personal experiences. How often have you felt rejected? Where in your own life have you experienced rejection? And what did that feel like? What loneliness did that create within you? And just think about your own personal experience with being rejected. And out of your own personal experience, would you choose to inflict that experience on another? And I believe that as people of faith, our answer to that is no. I would not intentionally project this on to anyone else. This is what it means to be a part of the whole. And then the third illustration this morning is inclusion, which is what we've been talking about. Inclusion is more, our inclusion of more and different cultures, points of view, and individualized expressions of humanity create an expanded and stronger atmosphere, not only for our centers for spiritual living, for our New Thought agencies, but for all aspects of our movement. Transcending ourselves with the recognition that we are intertwined like the garment of destiny advances us towards the vision of the beloved community, this vision that was articulated by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I invite you to Google beloved community and to read through that website, the work of the King Foundation. Summing it up though, Dr. King's vision of the beloved community is best explained by this quote from him. "We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an unescapable network of mutuality." And this statement lays the assumption that human experience is social in nature, and the solidarity of the human family is essential. We rise together, we fall divided. We rise together, we fall divided. And so our call to action, if you're willing to accept it, is to recognize that reaching higher requires us to change our position. To change our position physically, to change our position spiritually, to change our position mentally. And as we help bring about the beloved community into existence in our communities, in our society, and in the world, we upgrade our words from ones that hurt to ones that heal. Spiritual transcendence is actualized through the critical mass of individuals who have transcended the world of conditions and effects. And through our individual consciousness, the beloved community can be experienced as sacred. One where those experiences affect our self-perception, our feelings, and our ability to transcend difficulties and increase our capacity to express our compassion and our forgiveness for ourselves and for others. And we turn to the principles of our Science of Mind teaching, the timeless wisdom, and we look at compassion. Compassion is the practice of the principle of oneness, spiritual beings in heaven, this elevated state of consciousness and immortality. Compassion respects and honors the true nature of others in all life and us. Again, we are interconnected. Compassion is claiming the same good for others that we accept for ourselves. Forgiveness is a significant way to practice compassion. And so to live and espouse our values and the principles of oneness, we must transcend all illusions of separateness. Our ability to transcend enhances our ability to be more inclusive. These go hand in hand with one another. And then I have invited our tech team to place into our chat for our Zoom audience and into the comments section for our Facebook community the spiritual practice of the journaling activity for this week. And these I have identified as traits of the beloved community. The first one is to recognize and honor the image of God in every human being. The second one is to exhibit personal authority, personal authenticity, true respect, and the validation of others. Exhibit personal authenticity, true respect, and the validation of others. Our third one is to speak truth in love, always considering ways to be compassionate with one another. And the fourth is to blend faith and action to generate a commitment to creating a world that works for everyone. We blend together our faith and our action to generate a community and a commitment to creating a world that works for everyone, right where they are. And our affirmation for this week is, I transcend the totality of all, inclusion made manifest. And I invite you to say that with me. We'll do a little call and response. I transcend the totality of all, inclusion made manifest. I invite us now to turn within as we pray together. Stepping into the awareness of the all-prevailing presence of Spirit, that which transcends anything that is unlike itself. I know that the Spirit, this essence, this love, is absolutely all that there is, the source of all that there is. And I unify myself with the source, knowing that it is the very beingness of my life. It is that which created me. And as I know this for myself, I embrace it. I know it, I affirm it, I declare it for all people, for all living beings. There's a passage in the scripture that says, let everything that has breath, let everything that has breath. We know that this living and breathing universe that we live in is a demonstration and a manifestation of the breath of life that was breathed into each object, each individual. And so within this container of a life that encompasses all that there is, I speak my word of blessing for this community, the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. And I speak my word of blessing and appreciation and acknowledgement for all places where people are gathering in the name of the one Spirit that identifies within the very essence and being of their hearts. And as I always say, I know that there are many paths that lead to the one source. And so we walk hand in hand, we walk arm in arm as we travel our parallel paths. And at those points where our paths intersect, we embrace each other in the acknowledgement that we're all part of the one whole essence of life. We let go of those things that separate us, those things that the ego and the human mind says, not this, because of. But we embrace and we acknowledge and we affirm because of. because of our oneness and our uniqueness gift that we bring into the planet. I speak my word this morning knowing that divine right action is prevailing in the lives of each one. For those prayer requests that we hold deep in the recess of our hearts, those prayer requests that have been spoken to a prayer practitioner, those prayer requests that have been spoken in confidence to a close confidant, to a trusted soul, to a trusted being, to a trusted spirit, and to those prayer requests that remain unspoken and yet are known within the heart space. I know that the answer is always yes. Whatever the request, the answer is yes. Yes to right livelihood. Yes to right and perfect health. Yes to right living spaces. Yes to the desires of the heart. Yes to. The Spirit always says yes. And so as we're mindful of our request being made known, we make those requests in an affirmative way. We're not coming from a place of lack. We're coming from a place of abundance and prosperity. Even though it may not appear in physical form, we know that it is there because God has always said yes. Always yes. Always yes. And so as we transcend the limitations of the human ego, as we transcend and reach higher and rise higher, we know that our place in the universe is that of loving kindness, of welcoming, of love, of being united with all that there is. And so giving thanks for this and for so much more, I release this word now into the activity and the action of love and law, knowing that love propels the law into action. And the law just says yes. And so I allow all of this to be with deep, deep gratitude. And I invite you to affirm it with me as we say together, and so it is. And this is our opportunity now to practice the law of circulation, to give thanks in a material way for that which is continually given to us and provided for us. And we have an abundance affirmation that I invite us to read together. I recognize the presence of God within as a source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And again, in deep, deep gratitude for the ways that you continue to support the spiritual community. For those who are in our virtual community, you may mail a check in, and our address is on the screen. You may donate to our secure website at montereycsl.org/donate, or you may text to give. And just a reminder, all of the gifts that are provided to this community are deductible to the extent that are allowed by law. And so to our virtual community, we say thank you, and we invite you to join us next week as we continue our September theme, Reaching Higher. And our talk topic is When the Road Gets Rocky. When the road gets rocky. It's going to be interesting to see how Spirit unfolds that. So we thank you. We love you, we appreciate you, and we thank God for you. And we invite you to share this talk, this time together this morning with your friends on social media, inviting them to become a part of our virtual community. And if you're ever in the Monterey area, our doors are open at 10:30 on Sunday morning. We welcome you to join us in person. So I say thank you and good morning to our virtual community.